All right. Good evening. Welcome to Troy City Council. My name is William G. Roselle, President. Welcome to all our newly sworn-in member, Mrs. Westfall, and welcome back to everybody else. If you will stand, we will have invocation, and then we will have Owen Marsh lead us in the pledge. Almighty, never-loving God, bless each one of us with good health, renewed hope, and deeper resolve to serve as we begin the new year. Grant each elected official new and returning wisdom and discernment as we focus on the issues most relevant to the Troy community. Bestow upon our city thy paternal blessing of prosperity and goodwill towards all. All these things we ask in your name. Amen. Amen. Owen Marsh, Troop 5 from UCC.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very well. Mrs. Knight, can we go through the roll call?
Mrs. Marshall. Here. Mr. Phillips.
Here.
Mr. Pierce. Mr. Schilling.
Present.
Mr. Sievert.
Present.
Mrs. Snee. Here. Mr. Twist.
Here.
Mrs. Westfall.
Here.
Mr. Whidden.
Here. Move to excuse Mr. Pierce. Second.
Move to excuse Mr. Pierce by Mr. Sievert, second by Mr. Phillips. Mrs. Knight, please make a roll call on that.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Present. Yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Mrs. Snee. Yes. Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Whidden.
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Pierce is excused.
All righty. First item on our agenda is to employ the clerk of council.
Shall I read by title?
Please read it.
Ordinance number 01-2024. Ordinance employing clerk of Ordinance employing clerk of council and fixing compensation. This is the first reading.
Motion to approve ordinance number 1-24.
Second.
Would be to
Suspend the rules.
A motion to suspend them.
Second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the three reading rule by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Schilling. Please call the roll, or vote on that.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mrs. Snee? Yes. Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes. Now I'll make a motion to accept ordinance number 01-2024.
Motion to accept ordinance 01-2024 by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Schilling. Please call the vote on that.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mrs. Snee? Yes. Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
All righty. Next, we have election of President of Council Pro Tem.
We have to take, I have to take.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Stay there. I do tonight do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge the duties of the office of Clerk of Council, City of Troy, State of Ohio, during my continuance in said office.
I'm sure glad you had that paper, Grant.
It took 62 years. He's done it every time.
I bet the next one can't do that. Election of President of Council Pro Tem.
I nominate Mr. Bobby Phillips.
Second.
Mr. Phillips is nominated by Mr. Whidden, seconded by Mr. Twist. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Snee?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes. I'll recuse myself.
Mr. Schilling?
Hey, if you ain't voting for yourself, you don't deserve it.
Yes.
Mr. Siebert?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
All
Mr.
righty.
Phillips is elected President Pro Tem.
No oath, no repeating, and no
No.
memorizing?
No.
Okay. All righty. Summary of minutes of December,
Clerk Pro Tem, we need to elect
Council
Clerk Pro Tem.
my bad. Clerk of Council Pro Tem.
I'll make a motion to nominate Councilwoman Lynn Snee.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Phillips for Council Pro Tem and Len Snee, seconded by Mr. Twist. Please call the roll.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Siebert?
Yes.
Mrs. Snee?
Yes.
Motion is adopted. Mrs. Snee is elected as Clerk Pro Tem.
Congratulations. Now that we got all our housekeeping done, we get to our meeting. Summary of minutes of December 18th, 2023 meeting. Mrs. Knight, would you please read them?
Minutes of Council, December 18, 2023. There was a presentation to the City Auditor by the State Auditor's Office. Committee reports, Buildings and Utilities Committee recommended that legislation be prepared to enter into an extension of the agreement with the City of Dayton to provide lime to the City of Troy. Committee recommended legislation be prepared authorizing an amendment to the agreement with Hazen and Sawyer related to further design and work at the wastewater treatment plant. Community and Economic Development Committee supported the recommendation of the Loan Committee, recommended legislation be prepared to approve guidelines to the Residential Exterior Housing Improvement Loan Program. Committee supports the recommendation of the Planning Commission and recommends that ordinance number 052-2023, rezoning of 1304 West Main Street, be approved. Committee supports recommendation of Loan Review Committee, recommends legislation be prepared to revise guidelines for the Small Business Revolving Loan Fund and the CDBG Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund. Committee recommended that ordinance number 051-2023, rezone of the Swank annexation, be approved by a majority report. There was also a minority report not supporting that rezoning. There was a discussion on that ordinance. Finance Committee recommended legislation be prepared to support the recommendation of the Loan Review Committee for a loan to A.M. Scott Distillery that will offset, provide an offset to the agreement with the city not paying for some utilities for the restroom at 9 West Main Street. Committee recommended that the compensation study for the non-bargaining unit positions be accepted. Committee also recommended that legislation be prepared authorizing a professional services agreement related to the cleanup of the abandoned gasoline station at 100 West Market Street. Law and Ordinance Committee recommended legislation be prepared amending the income tax ordinance provisions. Recreation and Parks Committee recommended legislation be prepared authorizing professional services agreement to perform a construction design services associated with the Lowhead Dam and river improvement. Resolution number R64-2023, a memorandum of understanding with the Troy schools, was given second reading, failed suspension. Resolution number R66-2023, second amendment to agreement for professional services, Hazen and Sawyer, related to wastewater plant, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R67-2023, revised guidelines for the Residential Exterior Housing Improvement Revolving Loan Program, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R68-2023, revised guidelines for Small Business Development Revolving Loan Fund to include the guidelines for the CDBG Economic Revolving Loan Fund, and that was given first reading and was adopted. Resolution number R69-2023, amending loan repayment conditions A.M. Scott Distillery, was first reading and adopted. Resolution number R70-2023, enter into an agreement with Burgess & Nyepel for the design of the Lowhead Dam river improvements, first reading and adopted. Resolution number R71-2023, professional services agreement for environmental services for investigation and cleanup of 100 West Market Street, first reading and adopted. Ordinance number 051, 2023, changing zoning, was given third reading and was adopted. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, okay. Resolution R71, 2023 failed suspension. Ordinance number 051, 2023 was given third reading. That was a rezoning, and that was adopted. Sorry, lost my pages. Ordinance number 052, 2023, a rezoning, was given third reading and was adopted. Ordinance number 056, 2023, purchase of line from the City of Dayton, first reading and adopted. 057, 2023, amending income taxes section, was given first reading and was adopted. Ordinance number 058, 2023, salaries and wages of certain employees, was given third reading and was adopted. I'm sorry, first reading and adopted. There was a presentation from Shane Carter of Lincoln Community Center. Following various comments, a recognition of the outgoing council president. Council adjourned at 8:30 p.m. That's it. Oh, I'm sorry, there was an executive session prior to that, and council then adjourned at 8:30 p.m.
Move to accept.
Second.
I know.
Move to accept the minutes by Mr. Twist, seconded by Mr. Phillips. Please call the vote.
Mrs. Westphal.
Yes.
Mr. Whidden.
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed. Yes. Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
All right. We do not have any committee reports tonight, correct?
No, sir, we do not.
All right. That moves us on to citizens' comments of anything on the agenda, which is the three resolutions. If you would like to speak on that, please come to the podium, give your name and address, and you will have 2 minutes to express your views. Seeing no one, we will move on to the resolutions. Mrs. Knight, could you please read Resolution R64, 2023?
Resolution number R64, 2023, resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety and the President of the Board of Park Commissioners of the City of Troy, Ohio, to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Troy City Schools regarding future educational and recreational opportunities for residents within the Troy City School District and declaring an emergency. This has been recommended by the Board of Park Commissioners. This will be the third reading.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's moved to adopt Resolution 64, 2023 by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Sievert. Please call the roll.
Mr. Whidden.
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall.
I will abstain from this vote due to the fact that I work for Troy City Schools.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed.
I will abstain to avoid a conflict of interest because I work for Troy City Schools.
Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Mrs. Westphal.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Could you read, Mrs. Knight, please read Resolution 71, 2023.
Resolution number R71, 2023. Resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety of the City of Troy, Ohio, to enter into a professional services agreement with the Mannix and Smith Group, Inc. of Maumee, Ohio, for environmental services for the investigation and cleanup of the abandoned gas station property at 100 West Market Street, Troy, Ohio. This is at a cost not to exceed $250,000, which is 100% reimbursed by a grant. Second reading.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Motion's been made to suspend the three reading rule by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Twist. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
I need to abstain based on a professional conflict with the PIT participant.
Mrs. Sneed.
Yes.
Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Mrs. Westphal.
Yes.
Mr. Whidden.
Yes. Move to adopt?
Second.
Motion to adopt the resolution by Mr. Twist, seconded by Mr. Whidden, seconded by Mr. Twist. Please call.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Again, I need to abstain for it based on a professional relationship.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Westphal?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Mrs. Knight, would you please read Resolution 1, 2024?
Resolution number R1, 2024. Resolution authorizing the sale during calendar year 2024 of municipally owned personal property which is not needed for public use, or which is obsolete or unfit for the use for which it was acquired by Internet auction pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 721.15D. This is an annual piece of legislation required by the Ohio Revised Code. If there is a piece of property that is declared surplus that is of a value of $1,000 or more, it will come back before council to directly be authorized. First reading.
Move to suspend.
Second.
Suspension of three reading rules been motioned by Mr. Twist, second by Mr. Schilling. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Westphal?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been moved to adopt by Mr. Twist, seconded by Mr. Whidden. Would you please call the vote?
Mr. Sievert?
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Mrs. Westphal?
Yes.
Mr. Whidden?
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Schilling?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
That does it for resolutions tonight, and we have no ordinances, so we move to communication and announcements.
I have asked council to look at a few invitations and respond if you will be able to attend. That is all I have.
Which I think everybody's got a sheet of that. Mayor.
Happy New Year. Congratulations and welcome back, everybody. Susan, welcome to the dais.
Thank you.
And it's good to get the first meeting under our belts, and away we go. That's it.
Thank you. Director of Public and Service Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have several items, some of which are more mundane than others, but we do have Martin Luther King Day coming up on January 15th. It's a Monday. City offices are closed. Council meeting then will be at 7 o'clock on the 16th. Trash and recycling will remain on schedule. We're back to the on schedule for the rest of the year until December again. We are in our last round of leaf pile pickup. That goes through the 19th of January, weather permitting. We are collecting real trees free of any debris. And I say real because I have heard on at least one radio station where they mentioned artificial trees. We do not want to put artificial trees through our grinder. So we'll stick to real trees. At your places, for the record, you should have received the annual report from the Human Relations Commission. That is required by the ordinance. Sonia Holycross is the chairperson of the HRC, and so if you have any questions, you can ask us or Sonia about those at any time. Finally, I did want to remind the council that back in December, you did, because there's some misinformation out there, you did approve some recommendations related to the non-union compensation study. I want to, first of all, reiterate to you that in 2024, every full-time employee is getting cost of living raised. The 2% was related to a variety of other issues and recommendations that we're focused on the non-union employees. What I also want to remind the council is that when we talked about the non-union employees, we also mentioned that we were reaching out to the unions, to the bargaining units, to discuss the 2025 through 27 successor contract negotiations, which would typically start in the fall of 2024 when the contract is nearing expiration. And so we're talking with the unions. Some of them are more amenable to accelerating the process than others, which is perfectly fine with us. If we want to go fall, we'll go fall. It was just an offering that we made so that we can all be more efficient. We can do everything at one time. Otherwise, the unions do have binding contracts that have the salaries already laid out for 2024. The offer remains open. We will continue to discuss back and forth with the unions, and if there's anything to report, we will certainly do so, perhaps in executive session, but if we can be transparent, then we will at a future meeting. I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Director of Law, Mr. Kerber.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, as well, have prepared an annual report, and I believe that the clerk has distributed that to all the different council members, and I remain open to any questions or comments. Thank you.
Our City Auditor, Mr. Frigge.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing at this time.
I have a fundraiser announcement. Anybody that's hungry or still wants to participate and support the senior citizens, they're having a fundraiser at Muller's from 6 to 10 tonight, so if you're hungry on your way home, stop over there. Council members. It's on Patrick's tab. No council members? Staff, any comments? People in the audience? Very quiet and very efficient. So we are done.